Peace and blessings. Hope y'all having a good day. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is where you're at. I just wanted to come and bring a quick message. Just from a personal battle that I experienced very recently, and that's be careful. Be careful not to contend and not to be in a spirit of strife. Right? So we have to be very careful with the spirit of strife. We have to be careful with a lot of spirits, with the spirit of pride, with the spirit of anger, with any of these spirits that will drain your spiritual energy when you partake of them. So, say for instance, with the spirit of strife, when you're having conflict and disagreement with somebody in regard to spiritual matters, or it can even be in regard to natural matters. You have to be very careful, because what's happening in that time is you're actually using up a lot of your energy, a lot of your spiritual energy, right? And the reason why I say you have to be careful with that, because when you're done in that strife, you have a lot of energy that's been drained from you spiritually, and that leaves you wide open for sin to creep in, for things that you struggle with, for things that you've been battling a long time. That leaves the door wide open for those sins to enter in. Case in point, one thing I noticed is, and this has happened to me a couple of times, is when I'm in strife, because me personally, when I disagree with something, I'm going to vocalize it, with whomever. It was one time where I was in a group on Facebook, and I've deleted my Facebook since, but I was in a group on Facebook, and they were posting some doctrines that weren't biblically sound. So I challenged it, and we were going back and forth, and it took so much thought and spiritual energy from me that when I was done, it tempted me the hardest to masturbate, watch pornography, and to drink. That's what it challenged me, and I actually chose to sin. I don't say fell into sin, because you don't fall into sin, but you choose to sin. So I actually sinned because the temptation was so strong, and I couldn't fight it off, because I had just used all my stamina in strife with someone. So be careful. If you have a problem with anger and you get angry, that's draining your spiritual energy. So when that anger leaves you, that spirit of anger, when it leaves you, then you're going to be tempted to indulge in whatever things you've been battling. You're going to be more tempted than ever, and it's going to be super hard for you to fight that temptation, right? Because temptation is strong, and the enemy knows when to come in. He knows the right times to come in. But always remember, even if you do go into sin after you've been tempted, get right back up. Get right back up, because the enemy is going to try to convince you that, you're going to lose salvation, or you're going to go to hell, or you're going to do this. I mean, he just plants all kind of thoughts in your head that is going to give you a spirit of hopelessness. But you have to rebuke that spirit of hopelessness, and you got to repent, and you got to cleanse yourself and purify yourself, and you got to pray to the Most High with a broken spirit and a broken and contrite heart, and you got to continue battling. But be careful and learn those lessons. Learn those lessons about what drains your spiritual energy, because as believers, as followers of Christ, followers of the way, we're called to fast and pray. Whether it's weekly, monthly, you need to be fasting and praying. And when you're fasting and praying, you're building up your spiritual stamina, your spiritual energy, and you're tuning into the things of the spirit, and you're tuning out the things of the world. But in doing that, you have to be careful not to expend that energy on things that are not going to make a difference. Not saying that you can't challenge anything, but I'm saying be very careful, because the enemy will lure you in, and he'll suck the life right out of you, and then he'll send a temptation your way. You'll get on Facebook, and then it's a picture that that causes you to lust, or or you're watching TV and a commercial comes on about drinking you a cold beer or drinking you a glass of whiskey, and you know you've been fighting that sin. You know you've been fighting that demon. You know that's your vice. Or somebody might, text you and say, "Oh, let's go smoke," and this person hasn't texted you in a long time, but you've been battling that spirit of addiction. The enemy will send it at the right time, and if you're not careful, you're gonna go right back into sin. So learn those lessons. Learn that lesson. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. Because there's no worse feeling than being victorious over a sin, being victorious over a demon such as lust or whatever the case may be, whatever you struggle with, or alcoholism, addiction, cigarettes, or whatever. And one false move causes you to go back into it. And although it's no longer a stronghold, in that moment, it's a stronghold. No worse feeling than going back into something that you've already defeated. But don't lose faith. That's the reason why it's a journey. That's the reason why we're all on this walk together. We're not gonna be perfect all the time, but when we do fall, we got to get right back up and pray that the Most High doesn't give us over to a reprobate mind. Pray that the Most High doesn't make us comfortable in our sin, and pray that the Spirit convicts us. That's when you know that you are walking with the Most High. That's when you know you are walking with the Messiah. When you get convicted, conviction is a gift. Because those people who are not convicted by their sins and they're justifying their sins, those are the people who are only going to realize it at the last minute, and it's going to be too late for them. So pray that the Most High doesn't give you over to that seared mind and that reprobate mind, but that He convicts you every time you do something wrong. But be careful when you're contending and you're in strife, or when you get angry, or when you get prideful, or things that are going to drain your spiritual energy. Be careful with that. Because you're going to end up falling and going back into the sin that you've been fighting so hard not to go back into. So I just want to bring that to y'all, and I hope this message blesses somebody. And with that being said, I just want to say peace and shalom.